Hi, I'm Terry Kimball, President and CEO of the Chandler Chamber of Commerce, and I'm pleased to have with me Congressman Greg Stanton. Thank you for being here. The Congressman is running for re-election in Congressional District 4, so thank you for joining us today.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, running for Congress, why are you running for re-election?
Number one, I love public service. I believe in it. I believe in the difference that you can make in elected office. I've been fortunate to serve 3 terms now and going for a 4th term, and there's more work to be done. As you know, here in Chandler, we are the community that is doing best under the CHIPS and Science Act that we passed in a bipartisan way. We have to continue to support that most important industry. It's so important for our national security. So the success of Chandler and national security go hand in hand. We have a lot more work to do in that regard. We have a lot more work to do to protect our water supply so they continue to grow both in population and in economic development and job creation. I've made that a specialty area for me in Congress. I'm going to continue to do so. And we really need to do more on immigration reform, border security. We finally need to get a deal done, a bipartisan deal done. It hasn't been done yet. I want to be part of the solution on that. I chair an important committee in that regard as well. And of course, we have to do more as it relates to economic development and getting our fair share into the CHIPS and Science Act. So infrastructure, water, immigration reform, CHIPS and science, those are the things I spend my time on, and I want to continue to do so. In fact, we're going to have to do CHIPS 2.0. We're going to have to do another CHIPS and science type bill, because if we're going to win this battle with China, because that's really what it's all about, and there's no state that's in the game more than Arizona, and no part of Arizona more than the East Valley and Chandler. If we're going to win and be the world's leader on chips and semiconductor, we're going to have to do another CHIPS and Science Act. So I want to be a part of that as well. A lot of reasons, but I love service.
Love that. Love that. So let's talk a little bit about what do you think is really the biggest challenge facing the district in Arizona over the next couple of years?
Water. I mean, look, we've got to come to terms with the fact that the Colorado River, one of our major water sources, is a diminishing resource. And we've got a lot of work to do because Arizona is doing very well economically. Chandler is leading the way, obviously, in terms of leading industries. You've worked so hard on it. The Chamber's worked so hard on it to create this incredible situation. I'm literally the envy of so many of my other members of Congress because they know that so much of the semiconductor investment is happening here in Chandler and in the East Valley. We want to keep that going. We're still the fastest growing community in the United States of America. That's great. We want to keep that going. But we can only do that if we are smart about water. My job, number one in Congress on that most important issue, is to support water infrastructure investments, which we have done through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, which we've done through the Inflation Reduction Act, which we've done through WRDA, the Water Resources Development Act, working with the city of Chandler, working with Intel. We're now, through investment, and a lot of it's federal dollars, a lot of it's local dollars, but also federal dollars, we're allowing Intel to recycle virtually 100% of that water. So as they grow, they're having not a huge impact on our water supply. I'm working with the cities around the valley on the advanced water purification facility, which will allow, once it's built, it's going to be very expensive, but it's so important because it'll allow a drawdown less, 50% less drawdown from Colorado River. That's how we continue to grow our economy. That's how we continue to grow our community in spite of the drought that we are going through. We can do this. It's just going to take a lot of support from Congress to get it done.
That's great information. Thank you. So you know that Chandler represents about 172,000 employees, the Chandler Chamber does here, and we're a very large business organization. How will you continue to foster that relationship here with the Chandler Chamber?
Well, I mean, look, my relationship with you and the board has been awesome, and you've taught me a lot. I just respect the fact that this chamber, and knowing this is not an easy political issue, but your steadfast support, for example, the non-discrimination ordinance, was the right thing to do. It's good for Chandler. It's good for business. It sends a great message that Chandler is open for business for everyone. People vote with their feet. in terms of going to communities where they feel welcome. We want the best employees, regardless of your sexual orientation. I think that was real leadership by this chamber. You've taught me a lot about the support for small business. It's one of the reasons why I voted for the tax proposal that came out of the Ways and Means Committee that did allow for greater investment in research and development, allowed for tax deduction for that, and investment in equipment, which is so important for small businesses to make it a little less expensive. I voted yes on that policy, specifically looking at some of the recommendations through you and the other East Valley chambers when you put together your policy proposal. That is really important. The other thing you've taught me about is the need for smart immigration reform. So we need to couple border security and improve border security with immigration reform that helps grow our economy so that we have the strongest workforce possible to build for the future. So those are all things that I've learned from you. We've had a great relationship. I hope to get reelected, and I'm going to look to you and the board for leadership on support for small business. Because that's, Chandler, you know better than anyone. Chandler has the biggest companies doing the most advanced work in semiconductor and technology, but also has some great small businesses, including where this chamber is located in this part of the community. So many small businesses that need support. So this chamber does it all, big, small, medium, and I learn a lot from that.
So let's talk a little bit about how will you actively protect the interest of the business community, and what avenues of communication do you have or want to provide for our local businesses? How is that continued?
Well, I mean, sure. COVID, Small Business Administration, people that have employees that may need help with the VA, I don't know, whatever it might be. My job as a Congress member, in addition to hopefully voting the best for the district that I represent, is to be an advocate, to fight for businesses as they deal with red tape through the federal government, et cetera. I mean, my constituent services operation is second to none. I take it very seriously. As you know, I'm a local government person at heart, being a recovering mayor. So I've dealt with constituent services for a long time, and my team takes it very seriously and professionally. So I want people who I'm lucky enough to serve to feel comfortable calling my office and inquire about ways we could be supportive of them. Again, I mean, COVID was, unfortunately, for all the wrong reasons, a good example of how you could support the business community during the worst of times. But now moving forward, again, things like Small Business Administration, if you're waiting too long to find out whether you qualify for a loan, we can't help tell them to give you a loan, but we can help move that process along more quickly, and that's part of my advocacy.
Great. So what is your plan? Because our political environment is kind of all over. How do we bring a unified political environment, and how do you collaborate with others that might not agree with you?
Well, I think you have to model good behavior, and that's what I've tried to do. I mean, you don't see me on TV bashing one side or the other. I'm not trying to build up my personal brand by being in Congress. I just love service, and I want to get things done for the people I represent. I am ranked as one of the most bipartisan members of Congress. Juan Ciscomani and I are friends. We kid each other. He got a little bit ahead of me, so he's just a couple slots ahead of me on that list, but I'm pretty close behind. But we're both two of the most bipartisan members of Congress. Here's why. It's not just who I am as a person. It's how you get things done. Because in this election, I don't know if the Democrats are going to win. I don't know if the Republicans are going to win. But it almost doesn't matter, because either way, it's going to be super close. The only way to get things done is to work in a bipartisan way, either passing budgets, support for Ukraine, which I was proud to do. That was done in a bipartisan way. If we're ultimately going to get immigration reform that we need and border security, that's going to have to be a bipartisan deal. Support for our veterans. We passed the largest support for veterans in American history through the PACT Act, which greatly expands eligibility for people that work near burn pits and things like that, et cetera. That was all done in a bipartisan way. I'm on the Transportation Infrastructure Committee. I love infrastructure. That's my passion. It's probably the most bipartisan committee. We passed the FAA reauthorization, which is a bill that covers the entire aviation system. You can imagine the gamut of issues, the potential quicksand that we could go down into if people wanted to fight. Instead, we were able to reach bipartisan compromise. That bill passed out of our committee with 0 no votes, and it ultimately passed Congress. So you hear a lot about the lack of bipartisanship. On certain issues, I guess it does get to be that way, but so much of the business of Congress is done in a bipartisan way. Bills that I support and get involved in tend to be the more bipartisan ones. I mean, when you work on water, infrastructure, CHIPS and Science Act, things like that, those are naturally areas that lend themselves to bipartisanship.
Great, thank you for that. So fiscal responsibility is a huge issue. How do you prioritize the allocation of monies?
Okay, that's certainly a fair point. I know all about that in that I am a recovering mayor. As mayor, you have to balance every budget. You can't run any kind of a deficit. So we had to make some really tough choices about what our highest priorities were and had to make decisions and tell people, no, we can't do everything that people want. We always prioritize public safety, but we also had to make tough choices all across the board in a city. And I am proud of the fact that when I was mayor, we had, number one, the highest growth, as was mentioned earlier. We also had the highest wage growth in the country. And when I left office, we still had the highest bond rating, credit rating of any big city in the country. We have a lot of tough decisions to make in Congress in that regard. Obviously, tax policy is going to be a big part of this upcoming session. I mentioned some of the things where I feel that we need to be more supportive of small business and middle-class families, but that's going to be one heck of a discussion about making sure that we have the support and revenue that we need, and we also be willing to make cuts. I don't want to presuppose what those would be, because that's going to be part of bipartisan conversation. I would only suggest, though, that I have a track record of being willing to make tough decisions and having to explain those tough decisions to people we represent. So I look forward to rolling up my sleeves, because the United States, which is the greatest country on planet Earth, needs to remain the world's leading economy. We need to be a leading economy when it comes to research and development. Issues like, or entities like semiconductor, we have to remain number one on this planet. And we also need to be fiscally as strong as possible as well.
I agree. Thank you. So, come November, if you are reelected, what is going to be your number one priority right out of the gate that you're going to work on?
Water. I mean, I hate to be a broken record, but the truth is that it is the number one issue that is a potentially limiting factor on economic growth here in Arizona. The things I work on are all things that try to advance the Arizona economy. I mentioned infrastructure. Not only at the federal level, but I'm actively supporting Prop 479, which we need to pass. That's a regional extension of the regional tax for transportation here in Maricopa County. So infrastructure and infrastructure investment, water and water infrastructure, immigration reform, which is so important to the Arizona economy, particularly getting our dreamers, allowing our dreamers their chance to become citizens of the United States is such a critical element for us. And again, CHIPS and Science Act and continuing that and doing CHIPS and Science 2.0, all of those things that directly relate to growing the Arizona economy. But I would put water at this point number one on that list. We can't wait too much longer to make the tough decisions that we need to make about where we're going to make cuts, because we're inevitably going to have to make some cuts, but also where we make the investments, because good investments in water recycling, reuse of water, will allow us to draw down less of the Colorado River. So we can achieve this. We can do this. It's not going to be inexpensive, but it's the right thing to do for our kids and grandkids, if you will, because we just don't know how much longer the existing drought is going to continue.
Great information. Congressman, I know we've had a short period of time, and we've kind of jumped all over on some of the questions to hopefully have our viewers get a little bit of more insight from you. Is there anything I may not have asked you that you feel is important for them to know, or why they should vote for you?
Okay, sure. I serve on the Transportation Infrastructure Committee. I've talked about my passion for infrastructure investment, arguably the best investment people can make, that government can make to support the community. Every time we invest in infrastructure, our economy grows as a result. When Prop 479 passes, commute times are going to go down. We're going to have more productive employees and also be able to spend more time with your families. That's an awesome thing. and it will allow us to be more competitive as we go after competitive grants from the federal government. All of our major transportation priorities are going to be partnerships between the federal government and the local government. So I have a passion for it. I want to continue to do it. I also serve on the Foreign Affairs Committee. I spent a lot of time thinking about the U.S. role in the globe. And I do want to continue to build upon work that I've done in the past as mayor in terms of building a stronger trade relationship with Mexico. Because as we talk about the U.S.-Mexico relationship, we often talk about just the border or immigration, but don't leave out trade. Hundreds of thousands of jobs here in Arizona are directly related to trade with Mexico. And we want to continue to grow that trade with Mexico to create more jobs here and for nearshoring. Because as companies invest less in China or maybe even move current operations out of China, much of that's going to come back to the United States, but in some cases they're going to want to be near the United States where they have secure supply chains, but not necessarily come back to the United States. We want to make sure that we have a good working relationship with Mexico so we can bring some of the supply chain there and have easy access to Arizona and the rest of the United States, and Arizona will better benefit from that as well. So nearshoring is a priority of mine as well, and that involves not just good domestic economic policy, but good relationships with Mexico as well.
Great information. Thank you so much for joining us. Congressman Greg Stanton, running for re-election in Congressional District 4.